I'm John Flynn. I'm from the United States, but in Cologne this week, competing for Ireland, my other citizenship, dual citizenship with America. Yeah, I bought a boomerang myself in college in 1976 at a sporting goods store, a whammo, plastic whammo, like many people. And on the second day, I was just figuring it out, and I threw it. The wind blew it into a tree, and I couldn't get it out. But I figured I'd come back tomorrow, get the boomerang. But I came back the next day. The wind had blown it out of the tree, and the boomerang was gone. So 4.5 years passed, no boomerangs. And then my first job out of college was at a small windmill company based in Vermont, and I met a fellow named Eric Darnell, who is probably a familiar name to everybody. And through Eric, he was at the time on the first U.S. boomerang team, and was getting ready to go to Australia later in 1981. And I said, I remember trying the boomerang. And so I went up to his house, and he was raising funds for his trip, and there was all this energy. And I learned how to make a boomerang, and I was sucked right into the boomerang sport. And I went to my first tournament in August of '81 at Larry Roof's, and I was hooked. Yeah, well, Eric was one of a group of people who all met at the Smithsonian workshop in Washington, D.C. It was run by Ben Rue.
It's not a sport native to this country, and American boys throw baseballs, and Australian boys throw boomerangs.
It could be a very big competitive sport. In fact, I believe the Australians were trying to get it as one of the Olympic sports. I think it would open it up. It's something that a person can compete on as an individual and compete with themselves.
It's a good sport. It's better than a frisbee. They call it the thinking man's frisbee.
We have an astonishing sign up here. We have an engineer from Florida, a man from Vermont, a lawyer from Pennsylvania, somebody from Philadelphia, a gentleman from Connecticut, a man from West Virginia.
I came to the workshop here 2 weeks ago Saturday, and
Who was the workshop sponsored by?
by the Smithsonian, they passed out one completed boomerang, which had been made, I believe, in Australia, and then gave us each a blank, which we worked on here. We had brought our own tools, sandpaper, that sort of thing, and then spent the afternoon learning how to throw them. The contest seems to be more a matter of accuracy of throw and the ability to catch it within a specified diameter circle. To catch it, right.
The area down here is a warm-up area, as you may have gathered. So after each person...
So Larry Roof, his twin brother Peter Roof, were Ben's nephews. Barnaby Rue and actually Barnaby's twin brother Edward were also nephews of Ben. And Eric had read about the workshop and came to DC in 1974. It had been open to the public for the Smithsonian. And so those guys all got together. They went to the Rue farm afterwards and were making boomerangs, and it became this sort of core group of people that really recognizes kind of the pioneers of U.S. boomerangs, but also through Ben, who had an amazing number of contacts. Max Hoban, it turned to Gunter Veit later, Cecil Burwell, Herb Smith. At Ben Rue's collection in Chantilly, Virginia, National Air and Space Museum, there's a box of folders of personalized letters between all of these people and Ben Rue. And I went down to research on my book, and I found all these letters and read through them, and I learned so much about the history. It was sort of a ground zero. This is what really happened. These are the real stories, and that's what I ended up trying to get into my book. In different parts, different places, depending on the boomerang.
Until now, what is your take on this?
Well, I think everybody was super excited in '81. The Roofs and everybody was ready to go to Australia, and that was a big success. The Americans won. There was a rematch in '84 where the Australians came over for a rematch with the Americans, and they beat the Americans. That was my first experience on a U.S. team. The sport was still growing then. New designs, the Bretfeld MTA, my fast catch. In 1982, really that was the year everything changed. It just happened to be coincidence where Wilhelm Bretfeld's MTA made MTA times go up, and my fast catch boomerang made times go down, sort of a like that. And that's just a coincidence. And since '82, sort of fast catch has been what it is, and MTA has been similar to what it is now. As for competitions, in the '80s, throughout the '80s, things were still growing. Into the '90s, a lot of U.S. tournaments. Sometimes we had over 15 regional U.S. tournaments in the U.S. There's much fewer now. For whatever reason, the generation that went to those, me included, we've all gotten older, and there's not a replacement group of younger people sort of maintaining that momentum. And I think there's lots of reasons for that. Mainly the internet, a lot of it. There's people are on their screens, on their computers, and they're just not getting out and sort of challenging themselves with what the boomerang can be. And I don't know if I have a real answer for that, other than something like this, where we can talk and explain that I'm never going to give up on boomerangs being a popular activity for everybody, because it really is an amazing thing, amazingly fun. The exercise, the challenge, it doesn't get old for me. Okay, so we were throwing the events in Larry's tournament. As I remember them, there was their MTA, which was basically a traditional shaped boomerang that maybe had a little extra airfoil on it, but nothing special. There was Australian round. There was an event called Count Up, which was kind of like the suicide event, where you catch and you're out, and then you do some simple trick catches up through the foot catch. And there was fast catch. I didn't know it at the time, but I left the tournament basically just wanting to make more boomerangs. And so I bought some wood and a belt sander, and one of the ones I wanted to make with an extra piece of wood was an MTA. And I was just sort of trying to remember what it was, and I made a boomerang with maybe wings this long, this long, 5-ply Baltic birch, simple. And I thought, okay, maybe that's an MTA, and I put a little undercut on it. And so I'll go out and throw it. I didn't know anything about tuning. And I throw it thinking it's going to go up high, but it stayed low, came down and whacked me in the leg. It was slowing down, almost stopped spinning, hit me in the leg. Threw it again, even harder, same thing. Never went up in the air. So it's like, well, no, the MTA experiment has failed. But a couple of weeks later, I was at Eric's house, and he was making a fast catch boomerang with very wide wings, and he was putting this undercut on it with his belt sander, something similar to this, maybe deeper, for a different purpose. He was trying to get it to what he said would be to kite through the wind, a little, to cut through, and he was hoping to get a 4-second loop, 4-second circuit flight. The usual, just a regular out and back boomerang was about 5 seconds, 6 seconds. So he was going for 4. So just being a newbie and not really understanding, but understanding that my boomerang came back, I thought, well, what if I put the undercut on my boomerang, this MTA, failed MTA, and see what happens? Well, what happened was it didn't stop spinning. It spun faster. So when I threw it as hard as I could overhand, it spun fast, and came right back to me, and in 3.5 seconds. So at that point, I realized that this is a fast catch boomerang, and it's already doing something that Eric hasn't even finished trying. And so I was working with it, and the next spring, I pretty much had it down. I could do a fast catch round in 24 seconds with this boomerang. The world record was still 33 seconds by Bunny Reed, which had been set in 1981 in Australia. So the fast catch times were coming down, but it's still at 33 seconds. I go to the 1982 tournament, Larry's tournament. Again, like, nobody knows who I am, and I have this boomerang. And I set a world record twice. I set the first round, I did 32.6 with a drop, and then the next round 26.8, and so reduced the level in one day from 33 down to 26.8 with this very large boomerang. The next year, I got it down to 23.77 with the same large wing boomerang. And then that was 83, and 84 at Larry's, always at the same tournament. I had been with the U.S. team, as I said, with throwing against the Australians. Just before that tournament started, I made a spare fast catch because I had no backup. I just had this one big, weird, great boomerang. And so I made one along this size, maybe about 1.5 to 2 inches less on each wing, but the same undercut. I put some weights on it, mainly the weight on the lift arm to get it to 20 meters, but the same, just low, fast flight path. And then things happened even faster. So that year, I lowered it to 21.8. So, and then in 1985, again at Larry's, 21.01 first round, second round, 18.74. Broke the 20-second barrier, which I'd done in practice. I'd gotten 19 point something, but never below 19. So in the tournament, 1874, and that number stayed as the record for another 4 years until Ulrich Roos from Germany beat it with a three-blader. And they were kind of amazed and surprised. You know, I didn't want people, because I discovered it by accident, just trying something, and I wanted, if somebody was going to make something better, I wanted them to sort of use previous things that they've seen. So I'd let people look at it all you want, you know, see the tuning and all that, and then go make one, but not just like trace it. I want to copy it. I don't know. It just didn't seem like progress. That's not how I did it. So it's like, okay, go make your own. Great, do it. But it didn't really happen. So it's always been a fast boomerang. I was okay with it. I had my boomerangs that I was comfortable with. I did try some, and I ended up adapting them. If they work better in competition for me, I have no problem using them. You know, in about 1992, I made a three-wing in between a Doug Dufresne FC3 and one of Chet Snoffer's, just kind of a hybrid three-wing. And with that, I set the endurance record, 74 catches in '92 with that boomerang, and that's my best score. But it was a three-wing boomerang and not one of these. And you know, I was like, hey, this is faster. I'll use it. No. Sure. Well, this is a fast catch that I made last year, but just based on the original. Well, I guess call it second generation, the smaller fast catch that went under 20 seconds. Also, the first boomerang to get 70 in endurance. So both. Same boomerang, different 4 years apart, but the same boomerang. So yeah, so this one it's got the undercut. It's got some negative dihedral on the trailing arm, which is the secret to it. Keeps the flight low, and it's what I didn't see on that original one because I really didn't know about warping or tuning, and it just happened to be bent down. It just flew that way. I had no idea that actually MTA should be bent the other way, but I learned that. So I've got that one. This is again sort of the 1984 version. This is one, a little smaller version that I made in 1989. Almost used it today, but it's sort of a wind accuracy fast catch. It's 10 ply, 5 millimeter, but it has the wind holes, but it's got the same kind of undercut, and it's just a very smooth, steady flyer. Not fast like this, just for steady, something in the wind. This one's a boomerang. I don't know, I came up with a shape, but other people have come up with similar shapes. I call it the sun catcher because it's made out of poly, and the bright paint, when it's in the air, it really dazzles with light. And so this has always been one of my favorite designs. Let's see, this This one is a sort of a combination of many V's, going back to Eric Darnell's wishbone shape. So it's kind of a version of Volker Baron's Wind Eater, which has the undercuts along the leading edges of both wings on the underside. The size is similar to Ulla Wahlberg's DV. The material is a fiberglass with a layer of carbon fiber in between, called stealth material. Steve Conaway from San Diego made that back in the 90s. And so the combination is a really fun Aussie round boomerang, and it's unbreakable. It'll be around 1,000 years from now, and it'll look exactly the same, probably. The last one I've got is a natural elbow. That's something I've been making elbows for over 40 years, off and on, when time allows and when I have the trees and the bandsaw. This is a piece of spalted maple, and has wonderful coloring. The spalting is when the wood is rotting, so it's when wood is going from being wood to being junk, really. But this is fairly rugged, and I made it thick to keep it strong, just in case. And it's a really nice flyer, and it's got a nice hardwood sound to it. So it's, yeah, and not too far off the first elbow I made in 1983, size-wise. Also a piece of maple. This kind of almost like Bretfeld MTA type shape, but that's just the way the elbow allowed me to make the boomerang. And that's how I make elbows. I let the grain sort of talk to me as to what the boomerang is going to look like. The team 84, the first team, well, it was it was 6 team members plus 2 alternates. The team members: Larry Roof, Peter Roof, Eric, Chet Snoffer, Barnaby Rue, and George Reitbauer. Top 6. Alternates were myself and Mike Forrester.
Ben Rue is the captain of the American Boomerang team. He works at the National Archives and is responsible for the team under the auspices of the Smithsonian Institution. He said the match in Australia was close.
Oh, it was very strange, because we were Americans who had come to the country where the boomerang was invented 40,000 years ago, maybe, and here we were competing against the Australians and defeated them. And they were surprised. We were shocked. They were surprised.
You had a dramatic moment there.
Yeah, in the second test match, an Australian guy had just set the Australian record for long distance of 111 meters, which is well over a football field out and back with a complete accurate return. He was throwing a small, very heavy plastic boomerang to get maximum distance. And the thing came whizzing back, and one of the American players saw it and then lost it and realized it was heading toward him and ducked. But the thing hit him in the back of the head and gave him a cut.
But fortunately, there was a doctor on the team. He put in a quick 7 stitches in player Peter Ruff's head, who went on to snatch the victory.
And the managers, Ali Fugino, Ben Rue, they wanted us to fundraise and support the team. And it's like, well, that's okay, but we have to take time from work and things like that. So they allowed Mike Forrester and I to throw in the second test. So yeah, I made the team, and I'm going to be able to throw. And that's when it was like, yes, this is cool. First time I'd done anything even close to that. So we went down and met the Aussies, and they had all sorts of things. We went to a wild game dinner, special dinner, way out in the woods. It was like the Rue Farm, but it wasn't the Rue Farm. So just everybody's together, and it was really a fun, exciting time. So time comes for the competition on day 2. And I'm warming up. First event's fast catch. Warming up with the big boomerang that I trust. I had the spare. I'd made it a week before at Peter Roof's house. But so I'm in warm up, in fast catch. The boomerang breaks right down here. Broke, just split. I couldn't tape it. It was just a clean break. So I'm up. And talk about pressure. Super pressure. So I threw the one that looked like this, the second generation. It's like, I'm desperate. This is all I can do. And I got 25 seconds. Second round. First round, bombed. second round, 25 seconds. I was like, whew. I did it for the team. I didn't screw up. And that's probably the most pressure I've ever felt on a boomerang field. Yeah, the original idea was probably of a wider scope of a book. And I'd saved a lot of things. I basically saved everything that I'd gotten since 1981. And I thought, well, you really need to, I don't know, recognize this. And then I recognized that I probably would never finish that kind of a book. And I thought, well, what can I finish? And the idea came to me to focus on boomerangs themselves and maybe pick 50 that I can focus on, put some high resolution pictures, which had never really been done in boomerang books. There's a lot of boomerang books with pictures of amazing boomerangs, but they're low resolution or they're very small. So I decided to take it to the other route and go with the full page, high resolution pictures of these boomerangs, and then create an essay describing why they're important. And again, it's like important to me, what I think might be important. The rest of the boomerang world might agree, I don't know, or not, but that's okay. So that's what I did. I made a list. Maybe half of the boomerangs in the book are ones that I have, and half are ones that I either contacted people or knew people, got pictures from overseas, and sort of started this process of reaching out and doing research with all these different people. And it became this journey of meeting a lot of new friends, as it turned out. Getting information about the boomerangs that maybe they hadn't told anybody. And so originally it was going to be a much smaller book with the high resolution picture and maybe 4 or 5 lines on what the boomerang is. And so I laid it out a little bit. It's like, it's just not enough. It's not enough information. So one of them had a paragraph, and it just sort of grew from there. And a couple of, Gunter Veit especially, I contacted him because he started the DBC, and he had information, he had pictures of actually moments when the DBC was being formulated. And so that became a long essay. So now I've got to make the other essays longer to kind of balance it out. And so it became this process of assembling these essays, and then I'd find a different boomerang. I'd have a delay, but the delay resulted in more discoveries. So I was the 50 would sort of change a little bit, maybe 6 or 7 different iterations of what they were. And then finally it's like, I need to finish the book. So I did. I went with those 50. There's 6 honorable mentions because I just couldn't just cut it off. And that's how I did it. It just sort of keep growing and growing. I would put it down for a month and not look at it, and then pick it up and read it and find something that just doesn't read right. So go back in and edit. There's a lot of that. It's in rough chronological order, and the people that designed the Boomerang book for me did just a wonderful job. And one of the more creative things they did was make the contents page with a picture of the boomerang, just a little miniature picture, and the page that boomerang is on. And then on the next page, it's the name of the boomerang and who made it. So it's a nice intro. It's like, oh, that's an interesting boomerang. I'll just turn to that page. So again, it's in chronological order. It starts with the La Perouse transitional boomerangs that sort of got the white people involved, maybe in more consistency than they had been. One by, we don't know who it is, but I think maybe John Sims is the first one. Then one by a fellow named Charlie Ahoy. And Charlie Ahoy met Cecil Burwell in the Depression era camps. And that's how Cecil Burwell learned about boomerangs, from Charlie Ahoy, an Aboriginal living there, and passed that along to Bob Burwell, Jack Burwell, but that was the contact, Charlie Ahoy, and that's why his boomerang is in the book. That's what, to me, makes it an important boomerang.
Yeah, classic Laperouse, right?
Yep, it's small boomerang, but it works. I've thrown it. Bob Burwell threw it in Japan in 2006. I brought it with me to show him, and so we went out, like now, and threw it. And he threw it and caught it the first 2 times, just like that pinch, popped it out there, right back. It was cool. It was super cool.
What else?
So then we got Joe Timbry. As part of the research, I spoke with Jeff Timbry, who's one of Joe's descendants, actually his brother John's grandson. And I spoke with him on the phone. We had a nice chat. And I sent any of the essays that had to do with Aboriginals, I sent to him to read and just tell me, is it good? Is there something wrong? Is it respectful? He said I did okay. So good. Yep, good enough for me. And then we get into the King Billy Hook, which a lot of people have heard of. I met Ralph Sinclair in 2019 in Australia. I was there on business and met him in Melbourne with Rob Kroll, and he had the whole story about the actual King Billy Hook, which has a lot of different wrong stories, but this was like the actual story, like handwritten from the person that had presented Ralph with this boomerang. And to me, it's one of the most amazing things. Let's see, just get there quick. Frank Donnellan. That was also interesting, doing the research on Donnellan. He was an interesting guy, a real showman, and maybe he did some of those things, but as far as like the super long distance records, there's some real questions about how those measurements were made. Here, the King Billy Hook. So I had the opportunity to actually hold this boomerang with Ralph and not throw it, of course. And there's the back side of it. Rob Kroll arranged for these high-resolution pictures to be made, so Rob helped out. This is a picture of Ralph, the 1963 winner of the Australian Nationals, and a woman read the newspaper article about Ralph and his family. He had a young family who came to watch, and she was taken by the story. Had this boomerang in her family as a family heirloom for 80 years and offered it to Ralph as a prize for winning the Australian Nationals because she liked the story in the paper. And that's how it came to be. The cool part of this, I mean, it just keeps getting better, is that, so Ralph threw this, and it was like a low 50-meter flight, the way he described it. But then he stopped throwing it because he didn't want to break it. But he was a technical school teacher and taught his students to trace this shape, and then he took them to tournaments and took them to the 1966 Nationals, and a 17-year-old just recently graduated student won the Nationals. And some of his classmates, they beat the Lurie and Maxwell and all those names with the hook-shaped boomerang that no one had ever seen. So when that happened, Lurie, Bluey Williams, eventually Bunny Reed, were making hook-shaped boomerangs, and that's how the Aussie hook shape came about from that event, and basically traces back to this boomerang. So again, that's why it's important. That's why it's in the book. And so we go on. Here's a Lauren Hawes M17, and that's important for a lot of reasons. There's Lauren, and that was with his first boomerang that he made for himself because he couldn't find one that worked in Australia. So again, kind of an interesting story. And then Bluey Williams, to me, one of the most interesting and maybe forgotten competitors that there is. He was actually born before Joe Timbry. He was born in 1908. He played Australian rules football, and he was a postman, but he was into boomerangs. And he was competing in his mid-60s. In the early 70s, he won the 1972 Nationals with this boomerang. He won it, and this event is described a couple of places. And there's a quote by Jeff Lurie about, let's see, what did he say? Jeff Lurie said, "He showed everyone just how it should be done," recalled Lurie. Let's see, Williams' performance was the best exhibition of boomerang throwing one could ever hope to witness. That's pretty cool. And this is probably the only picture of him throwing, and this was probably 1970. Unfortunately, he was in great shape, but he had been a welder in World War II, and he got lung disease, got lung cancer, and died unfortunately very quickly. And there were some letters at Ben Ru's collection at the Space Museum that is just sort of describing his deterioration. It's very sad, but it's as far as like from a research standpoint, it was really good to see that. Then we get into Lazy 7, Bob Burwell, of course, famous shape. Here's Cecil Burwell, his father, and Bob, like recording some memories on a cassette tape with the Lazy 7. This picture was taken by brother Brian Thomas, where Bob had hit Peter Roof, this is in '81 in Australia, in the head with an LD boomerang. Thankfully, Peter was okay, but it was certainly a close call. So again, an essay sort of describing the Lazy 7. Yeah, yep, it's the best way to do it is through my website, which is fastcatchpress.com. And they can contact me via that, and I can ship the Boomerang book anywhere. It's unfortunately it's expensive to ship overseas, and I don't expect that to change. But I think even with the book, I reduced the price of the book because of the shipping for overseas. It costs less than it costs to go to a tournament, and I think I'm like being a salesman here, but I think it's worth it.
So it's a of the community.
I would say do some homework if you can. Go to a website like boomerangs.com or Boomerang Man or somebody in Europe who can provide good boomerangs and maybe some good advice. You might be able to have a dialogue with someone and not just press a button on the screen and say that one looks good, because it may be terrible. It might not be appropriate for that level of thrower, whatever that might be. And start with that and watch some YouTube videos and see how people throw, and come to a tournament. Do some research, say Google Boomerang tournament, and see what comes up. Because there's not as many as there were, like we were saying, and that's unfortunately. But if more people show up, then maybe they want to host a tournament, and maybe we can start building things up that way. But it does take some practice. A lot of people want instant gratification, and boomerangs probably do not provide that, but they'll provide a type of challenge, and you're playing with the wind, and you're aware that it's just a beautiful clear day. But what I'm seeing where's the wind. I see a totally different thing, and to me, I find that super exciting, and everybody else who's here, I think, sees it the same way. It's just a great thing to be doing, and there's always new boomerangs, and who knows, somebody gets an idea for a better boomerang who's just seeing this for the first time. That was me 45 years ago, so it can happen to anybody.